All of those things exist in me. I'm the all in all. Supreme team, dominant gene, God in the physical. Rose from the bowels of hell, pardon my visual. Cremators doing their job when they get rid of you. Crabs in a bucket, mind state and kill a nigga too. Civil wars in the hood, letting hammers dance, playing with them pieces of steel, attract the ambulance or a prison bid. Now your daughter's sick. Ain't nothing gangster about leaving your seeds fatherless. So I study self and subtracted crime. It takes supreme mathematics to heal a grafted mind. For the 2 and the 3, you need the 1. The only way to get to the Father is through the Son. I met a lot of dudes when they used to shit. They come and go every day. I'm getting used to it. Far as self go, I'm planning on the square. They unlike to a law. They planning over there. They don't respect the history. They don't recite degrees. But we be using them both to reunite the seeds. Yellow to the brown, brown to the black. Accepted or rejected, you repel or attract. It's been over 50 years, he been gone so far. Now that's a powerful cipher. Peace to Allah.
All right, peace, my people. Tonight, I'm getting ready to give you a real serious story. This story is about an individual that's been incarcerated 33 years straight. His name is J Burton, but his name is also freedom because he was introduced to the knowledge of self while he was incarcerated during these 33 years straight. He was born in Watts, California. He is a real Watts blood. He has a lot of positive information to give to the youth. Also, his comrade, Joseph Ladgon, that also spent 22 years straight in the penal institutions, has something to offer y'all also. I was fortunate to run into these brothers on my big sister's Instagram show, in which she did an interview with me about the 5% Nation. So I would like everybody, especially the youth, to pay close attention to these two individual men, mainly the one that's coming up first. And I'm going to show you live here on God in Them Streets how real we keep it. Okay, here we go.
Black Veterans Society, and he came while we was down in college together, Crystal. And when the guy came from the Black Veterans Society, he said, like a dead president, when the black soldiers first got to Vietnam, that the boots, the Vietnamese, would come in the barracks at night and they would cut all the white boys' necks and leave them dead and leave the brothers alive. And the pamphlets, like you seen for the dead presidents, that say, go home, brother, this is not your war. That shit was real. You know what I'm saying? So East Coast, West Coast, wherever. See, what we got to realize as black people, right? The basic foundation to slavery is like Willie Lynch theory, you know, whether it's real or not, is to keep, you know, the chain and ball on our minds. So what I'm saying to that, right? We slaves, we on the plantation. Me and you is brothers. Crystal is our sister. You know what I'm saying? Most of the time when we became black males at the age of 7, the age of God, we start to develop our manhood. So now the slave master say, yo, I'm taking freedom and I'm separating them from Shabu and I'm sending them out west. When you went out west and we was on this plantation on the east and our name was Washington, when you went out west, your name became Jones. Mm-hmm. So now me and you don't even know that we brothers, and if they took Crystal, that was our sister, and decided to sell her off to another plantation, then what name did she take on? She took on the last name of her slave master, not the last name that we got. That's why we got rid of those names. You know what I'm saying? So all of our proper last name became our law, because at the end of the day, that was bringing the oneness back together. The bond. Yeah. The reason why we as black people can't do nothing in society is because they keep us separated. His whole ideology and philosophy has never changed. It's called divide and conquer. And he does that to us through everything. We as black, there's 48 different shades of black. You know, 16 shades of black, 16 shades of brown, 16 shades of yellow. All three of us are sitting there looking at each other, and we may all be different variants of brown or black.
So let me ask you
know what I'm saying? But once we separate it in the mind, once he destroys the unity in the mind of us loving and having self-respect, that's why we say the 12th letter, which is L, and our supreme alphabet say love, hell, or right. And we go through the love, but, you know, like I was saying, the Crystal, you ain't been out here, you know, because you went in 89, so you got a chance to experience whatever, but you went in as a real young man, so it could be a part that you got caught up in it. But like I said, the crack era destroyed the nation also. It destroyed the nation also because, let me tell you something, right? Growing up in the 60s, I seen dope fiend mothers, I seen alcoholic mothers, and I seen, I'm not saying all of them, but I've seen functional ones that I grew up with in the project that took care of their kids. But when crack came along, that was a whole different thing. That was the first time I experienced the black woman no longer being a mother to her child. And when you have children that are born without unconditional love, they have no problem with being murderers. They have no problem with taking life because they have no regard for life, because life never had no regard for them.
Woo! Now stop right there. Stop right there. Now Jay wrote a book about that. Now once again, this is Jay.
Yeah, no, that's all.
This is J Burton. He's been incarcerated.
This book. This me growing up in Watts. The name of this book is called The Life and Times of a L.A. Blood.
And Master Cody was the first book that I read.
Yeah, he was.
About that gang life.
Yeah, I know Master Cody. He rests in peace right now, but he wrote his book in like the early 90s. He was the first Crip, actually the first gang member to actually write a tell-all book. A lot of his homeboys got mad at him for writing that book because they felt he was exposing a lot of stuff. So when I was writing this, I had to be mindful of that as well. And what I mean by that, some things when you're in a life, are you striding the gate about the life, certain things that just not going to be revealed. You can't reveal everything because you will suffer some consequences. And he suffered some consequences through that. And Monster Cody, who we talking about, he was one of the ones, even Stanley Tookie Williams, one of the co-founders of the Crips, he even talked about Monster Cody in his book. So Monster Cody was a major factor. But the sad thing about him, he was highly intelligent. When he come into these prisons, the brother is very intelligent, very sharp. But every time he made it back to them streets, his weakness was everything that ended up eventually killing him anyway, because this dude was a highly influential person. When you talk about Tupac and the Shakur family, he even made himself a part of the Shakur family. So he was very powerful. He was very powerful, but in his own neighborhood, he wasn't powerful. See, that's what the world didn't know. And being that he rested in peace, I'm not going to, talk bad about him, but he had that monster on his back, and he couldn't shake her.
And see,
that crack. That crack was so powerful of him. This was a highly intelligent, very reputable dude when it came to his cripping. But when he had that monster on his back, he was just his home. I ain't gonna do it. He like I say, he died in a tent. This dude was, like I say, this dude was somebody when it came to the cripping. He was somebody. When he was in prison, he was one of the sharpest dudes you can ever meet. But every time he made it back to them streets, man, it just, that monster was this outpowered him every time.
And see, brother,
Yeah, go ahead.
that's the problem with incarceration. You understand? Because while you incarcerated, it's like the army. Be all that you can be. Like you said, I seen some of the strongest, swiftest, brothers, like Malcolm, that knew every word in the dictionary and everything. But see, what always happens is you could become 5%, you could become Muslim, you could become a born-again Christian, you could become satanic worshiper, whatever you want to be while you in there, because it's a structure for you. And you can only do but so much. But the real test of who you are and what you built like is when you hit the street.
Yeah,
and when them individuals hit the street and they no longer got a regiment, a structure around them, then they fall victim, as you said. And see, what the problem is with the OGs, you know what I'm saying? And I always say this because I'm an OG, I say triple OG. From my perspective is, I tell the young brothers all the time, just as well as I tell the older brothers. The young can't do without the old, and the old can't do without the young. We can't be the foot soldiers no more. You understand? Y'all got to be the foot soldiers. But the whole thing about it is the powers that be, they set things a certain way. This is why now we got all of these rappers that's gang banging, that's getting hit with RICO left and right. We did what we did and it wasn't right. But we hustle to get money, to get into other perspectives, to try and do other things. Like I tell everybody, I'm going to keep it 1,000 with everybody. The only thing I regret about the crack era was that I couldn't have the ability to bring all those brothers together so that we could see which was our movement from the beginning as the A-team, that we decided to sell drugs in our community and justify it because we was going to buy back the bodega, the cleaners, the buildings, and everything else. Because at the end of the day, there's casualties of war and everything in life. But the only thing about us as black people, we don't take advantage of it. The mafia, everybody else. Come on, the Rockefellers, read the Jim files. Everybody got slaves, got rich off of either slavery, the moving of slaves, or the Kennedys, alcohol, prohibition, everything else. But as soon as they get rich off of it, if we enter it in any type of way, then it's wrong.
They make it illegal.
Exactly.
But the thing is, see, what we got to understand is that the way the laws are designed, that they say the laws don't work. It does work. It works for them. And the thing is, we got to start learning to make that shit work for us. Because there are ways we can tweak that law and start working for us. Because most dudes on these prison yards, they are involved in the criminal lifestyle. I've been involved in a lot of shit on these prison yards in criminal lifestyle. But the majority of us do not have an inkling of what our rights are. How is you going to be in something, but you don't know nothing about the everything that comes with that? And most criminals don't know nothing about law, but you break it every single day.
Wow.
And that's one of the things. I became a jailhouse lawyer back in the early 90s. And when I became a jailhouse lawyer, I said, what am I going to do with this? So what I did, when I first learned how to do law, it was a dude from the Bay Area, one of the Bay Area brothers. He put me, he was like, look, man, I'm going to teach you how to do law. So when he taught me how to do law, one of the first dudes I helped was a so-called rival of my neighborhood. Like, I'm from Pontiac and Watts. Our so-called enemy is the Grape Streets. Well, it's other people. I'm just using that as an example. They're like the main enemies. They're not my enemy, but that's, according to hood protocol. So the thing is, I went and helped a so-called enemy. This dude had a life sentence. One of the first dudes I helped when I first started learning law, and I got his life sentence off. For years, I've been trying to get my life sentence off. and they shut me down. I just did 9 years in solitary confinement because you mentioned somebody named, George Jackson. George Jackson.
9 years in solitary confinement for mentioning George Jackson's name.
He was one of the strongest prisoners in California's history. But his memory still lived till this very day. So if you get caught with any of his books, they are putting you in solitary confinement. That's how strong this guy is. That's how much they fear this dude.
Wow. The white lady that was his lawyer not cutting you off is the one that supposed to gave him the gun to put in his afro. And his brother got killed in the process, and his brother was strong.
But you know the story about his brother. If you know anything about Angela Davis, she's a professor out here in Northern California. She's a big time advocate. She's been an activist since the 60s. And Angela Davis, her and Jonathan Jackson. Jonathan Jackson is George's brother. Jonathan Jackson was 17 years old. His brother George, he went to prison for 1 year to life for robbing a gas station. He ended up doing 11 years in San Quentin before he was murdered. But when he was in prison, he educated himself and became the movement. He was so much of a threat that they did everything in their power to have Mexicans, whites, anybody to try to kill George, but you couldn't kill him because he was just vicious like that, right? But he was so strong in his conviction. Like he said, it was a lawyer. And the lawyer, she happened to be a white woman that sided with the movement. So she was helping him a lot. But I'm going to tell you something. Jonathan Jackson was 17 years old. That man went into a courtroom building with a rifle and went and got his comrades and said, look, I'm coming to get my comrades out this courtroom. He had a rifle, 17 years old. He got his comrades who were Black Panthers and Black guerrilla families. He went and got them out of the courtroom, took the judge and the DA with him. When they got in the van, the police shot the whole van up, killed the judge, the DA, and everybody in there. And one dude left. His name is Rachel McGee. He's been incarcerated. He's the longest held California prisoner. He's been incarcerated for like about 60 years now.
Wow.
It's a big movement to free Rachel McGee. Rachel McGee, he was found not guilty, but the thing is this man is the longest held California prisoner. He's been held about 60-something years. All kind of movements going on right now.
Wow. And you got a movement right now too.
Yes, I have a movement. It's the #Free J Burton movement. It's getting momentum. Some of my comrades been on here, and some of them probably still on here. The thing is, I'm trying to liberate myself. I've been fighting these people for since I was 16. I'll be 50 in a few months.
So you have been incarcerated 33 years. You're incarcerated in a maximum prison right now. You're in a cell. You're in a cell right now.
He gonna show y'all, ladies and gentlemen. He gonna show y'all gangbangers,
let me show you what it looks
everybody that he's still incarcerated. Look at the man's cell right there.
And so this is where, if you're watching this and you have children or something, they need to know this is not where they want to be. This is
He's showing you outside his shoe.
You got the bomb. You brought the brother out. You brought him out. You put me up here and brought him out. And see, this is what I'm talking about. And he's showing you the reality of it. He's been there 33 years. And like he said, the majority of our youth, just like I was saying, with them young rappers and all that, how do you have a gang that operates within a 10-year span that y'all allow them to catch 50 bodies, but they rich rappers? See, all of this is a part of a bigger plan when we came with this regentrification and everybody, the spots that they couldn't push us out of, that's still too infested. You got to realize a whole bunch of individuals coming home from jail that's like this brother Freedom. They've been locked up since they've been a youth, and now they letting them go because they 60 and 70 and over the line, and if you ain't died in prison, we'll let you out, and hopefully in 2-3 years, you'll be dead. So they was waiting. So now they come in and
See
they
the
sweep
brother
them
walking
out.
in
And the
himself.
sad part about
This
it
is
is,
real.
you just went to Icebox or Ice House and bought $100,000 chain and
Walking
put it
back
on
and
your neck.
forth in the
And a
cell.
lot of us wear jewelry, because I still wear jewelry from, the thing that it was a time where we was kings and queens. The richest man in the world, Mansa Musa, made the pyramids to Mecca in 1324 with over, 800 pounds of gold on each camel's back. You understand? So it's two sides to that. But what I'm saying is that, brother, when you can put $100,000 chain on your neck before you can say, let me go buy 5 John Deere riding mowing lawns. You can get those from Lowe's at Home Depot. 2,000 and some change. You bought 5. You only spent $10,000. Or let's say 15. Then you go get some weed whackers, some blowers, and all that, and you still got enough money to buy 2 F-150s that now you could come back to the neighborhood and give jobs permanently to the youth, where they can pressure walls, where they can do these things, or you could go with these older brothers and that know and everything else and tell them, I'll pay you for you to instruct them how to become brick masons and all that. And you got a lot of the older ones that's in the neighborhood, they'll do it for free.
Now look,
but it's the mentality.
This young man here has gotten several certifications since he's been incarcerated 33 years. If you're just chiming in, this young man on the right, J Burton, he has a movement free J Burton. He has a book out. You need to get the book. And he is...
Yo, Justice, I'm live up on the interview right now. We got a guard up there that's showing himself that been in the penitentiary for understanding years, man. This is high power. I'm gonna hit you when I get off.
For certain. And appreciate it.
Peace.
And so, we taking a praise and a pause just to tell people, if you're watching this, to understand the importance of why it is definitely needed that what he's doing. He has a channel on YouTube called God in the Street, where he's taking his knowledge as a God, as a gangster, and as a gentleman, and he's passing it back on to the young brothers to keep them from being where you are, to keep them from getting where you are. He's passing his knowledge as a God, as a gangster, and a gentleman to keep them.
And there go my comrade right there, Joseph P Ladgon. Could you bring Joseph P Ladgon up? That's my comrade. He actually from New York as well.
Okay.
He just did 22 years, and that's my comrade. This is actually his book right here.
Okay. Joseph, come on up. I just sent you an invite.
Hey, Joseph, hey, come up, Joseph. And he very knowledgeable about this as well. What's up, comrade?
Peace.
Joseph P Ladgon right there, y'all.
Give us some
This
light,
is his book.
Joseph. Nice to meet you. Can we see you? Because you're in the
Yeah,
dark.
Joseph, my kids. All right. That's a little clear, black man.
All right.
Peace.
Tell us your name, and you just came out. Give us a little history on your part of it. And thank you, gentlemen, all of you, for taking time out to educate individuals, because there's a lot of women here who have sons, that have brothers, that have significant others. And so this is powerful, because we need to know how we can help our young men today. We need to know what we need to do.
You better blow on this one, Crystal, for real.
Hey, Joseph, hey, we got a 5%er up here, Joseph.
Oh yeah.
Go to spit to the God body.
Yeah, you already know, man. Gumar's the bar, you heard? You already.
All the time, every day, all day, We gonna teach this the righteous way.
That's it all right there, you heard? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But now, my name is Joseph P Ladgon, a.k.a. the Underdog Coach. Excuse me, my girl is in here doing things. Let me get up out of here. She's just coming here while I'm talking. Cooking,
I'll be right back. I'm going to get some water.
Go ahead.
Anyway, my name is Joseph P Ladgon, a.k.a. the Underdog Coach. I turn underdogs into top dog using 5 basic strategies: communication, self-motivation, leadership, fortitude, and the execution. I always do that because the execution is the hardest part. You hear what I'm saying? I'm from Brooklyn, Brownsville, New York, and I was raised in the gutters. And for those who don't know what the gutters is, that is the downtrodden, that is poverty. That is where the poverty mindset dwells, lays, and exists. And unfortunately for me, it led me to a life of crime, juvenile facility after juvenile facility, group home after group home, and eventually the big one. The big one. Elizabeth, the big one, Elizabeth. Oh, you know, we gotta give salute song for Red Fox, right? The big one, right?
Yes.
That's, I remember when they gave him 22 years in prison, right? When I was sentenced to 22 years in prison, I turned to Red Fox. Heart attack moment, right? So I was already a part of the system from when I was born. Coming out of Brooklyn, Brownsville, that is the semblance of a prison, right? The outer parts are the semblance of a prison. So it was kind of easy for us to make the transition and transformation from prison, you know, projects to prison. It's all equate to the same thing. So along the way, I must say, I was already prone to violence. I was already under the false pretense that light-skinned people get raped in prison. You better not drop the soap. So all these things were accumulated knowledge that made me extremely vicious in there, right? And I hate to say that, but along the way, I found myself, I found my purpose, I found my voice. I linked up with phenomenal men like Lamar Ellis, who's a platinum award winner with Les Brown, who I met while I was incarcerated. I became a professional speaker in there. I have my Toastmasters International CC certifications in speaking. So there's many things that I've done in that prison so I can translate this information to the brothers and sisters that's on their way to prison, right? So we're trying to halt that, stop that by giving them clarity, their proper education, their proper
Remember, Jay is still walking around in his prison cell with 33 years in, while his man, Joseph, is speaking free after 22 years straight. Like I said, this is a fantastic interview.
Regardless of the fact where they've been, regardless of the fact where they at, and regardless of the fact what they're trying to do. We have the ability to be swift and changeable and always remainable, right? So, you know, with that being said, that's my whole testimony in a nutshell. This ain't about me. You know, I'm already 43 years old, convicted, conditioned in terms of what they think I'm supposed to be. I defied those odds, so now we're trying to attack the youth. You know, I was in gangs, I was gang banging, just like Jay was, for a long period of time while I was in prison. And, you know, making a transformation and transition from inmate, what they consider inmate, but we should be considering hostage, slave, right? It's very hard to do. It's very complicated. But I believe if you have a vision, you have a purpose, the pain will go away. Let me say that again. If you have a vision, a purpose, the pain will go away if you translate all of that into that. So that's my book right there, y'all. So I want to become serious about what I was doing. I wanted people to take me serious. Excuse me, I'm just grabbing some books for y'all real quick. I wanted people to take me serious, not just as someone who's talking, but an expert at what I'm talking about. If a doctor could go to school to become whatever he is, PhD or whatever, for 6, 7, 8 years, I tripled that time by doing prison time for 22 years straight, and I was able to prosper, go through my pooper stage. And all I want to do is show my little homies out there how we was able to do it, because we was just like them. Actually, we're still just like them. The difference is we're now dealing with our higher selves. We're always the same people. We just grow. That's just inevitable, right? So this is the book that I wrote, From the Sandbox to the Cell Block, a story of struggle, oppression, and redemption. This is actually my body right here. I put a lot of things on me to represent what I've been through in terms of shackles and chains and invisible pain, right? So that book was written in prison along with 3 other books that I wrote, which I'm actually about to drop one of them that I wrote out here on my release date in September. So this is...
I love it. He's spinning right now. So listen, if you just got on this live, I want you to follow all. Thank you so much for him sharing. I would love to talk more to him and love to hear more.
Okay, as you can see, my people, these 2 brothers, one still incarcerated, doing 33 years at this point, this stage in his life Freedom, J Burton, you know, Freedom for Justice for J Burton. Make sure that y'all look that up, that y'all join in the movement with freeing my brother back out here into the free world. He gave y'all a lot of jewels, y'all young gangbangers out there. Look at the jewels that that man gave you. First, he showed you that, you know, he was willing to fight against the establishment. Because if you notice, no disrespect to law enforcement or anything else, he said he first went to solitary confinement for stabbing a pig, which is, you know, a revolutionary word that was used a lot in the 60s and early 70s as we was growing up, you know, within this conscious state, this pro-black state, this revolutionary mind state. And he did 4 years for doing that. He ran into some brothers that liked the way that he was moving on the yard. Meaning, just like we always was taught back in the days, when we go to the communities, you know, we want the gang leaders. We want the crew leaders. Because once you take them and you educate the leaders, just like they did on the East Coast, our older, elder brothers from the 60s that was taught by Almighty God Allah in the flesh, that their job was to first go out to the youth gangs, and change their mentality and their mindset. So once again, in the East Coast, gangbanging ceased and no longer existed at that point in the early 70s because my elder brothers began to teach us after the Father Almighty God Allah returned to the essence. So we came up out of that gang mentality and we got the knowledge of ourselves and we got the respect of knowing our true history as kings and queens, and that we was not just slaves, and that we was just not, you know, a group of people that had no land, had no language, had no culture prior to us being placed into slavery. So now that my brother, you know, Freedom lifted the chains off of his mind, he was able at that point that once another brother instructed him in the most important aspect of understanding criminology is to know criminal law. So once he taught him criminal law, how to shepherdize, how to go into a book and know what a penal code is and what you're being charged of, he took that knowledge and he turned it around. And guess who he used to free first? He used another individual that when he was free out in the streets, he would have been going to war with that individual based upon him living in another geographical location in, you know, LA at that time and representing another gang set. But now here that he has become educated, that he has learned the true knowledge of himself, that he could take that same knowledge that he learned and not be able to free himself, but be able to free another black man that came from an arch rival, another gang out in the free world. So what does that show you? That shows you true understanding of self, that our war is not with each other, that our war is not a physical war, but we have the war in the mind. Because one time, you know what I'm saying, we was niggas and we went to being gods, like the book said, from niggas to gods. But now we've went back from gods to niggas, from our youth calling themselves now demon. I live on demon time. Not that I live on God time, but I live on demon time. Evil, destruction. And our lesson to say Yaku was the father of the devil. He was an original black man that taught the devil how to do devilishment, which was telling lies, stealing, and trying to master the original man. What do we do every single day except for trying and master each other? Out there saying that we control this neighborhood and everything, where economically we control nothing. Like I said, as a original 18 member, when we first jumped into the game of destruction and of selling crack, we justified it by saying that we was going to buy back the community. We was going to buy back the bodega, the Chinese restaurants, the cleaners, and give, our mothers and fathers a way of working under employment that is their own. The same structure that Marcus Garvey gave us, the same structure that Elijah gave us. Do for self, black man, woman, and child. But instead, we fell victim to all the materialistic things, the car, the money, the drugs, the violence. They made the record back there, headed for self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction. And that's what we did. But getting back to our brother, Freedom, J Burton, like I said, I showed y'all this so that you would see, not that he came out, he's still in there. But like he said, I'm political blood, I'm a conscious blood. He went to the box, solitary confinement, for 9 years, just for having George Jackson's literature. Because George Jackson literature was revolutionary. Like he stated, his brother Jonathan, 17 years old, this is how we was built back then, went into the courtroom to pull his comrades out. And the powers that be, rather than to let them escape, they killed their own kind. Yes, they killed the judge and the DA. And the only survivor has now been incarcerated 60 years straight. And they never found him guilty of any extra crime outside the crime that he was in there for. So once again, wake up. So many individuals have made so many sacrifices. So many of our ancestors was hung from trees, bitten by dogs, water hosed down for marching for our rights, to be recognized as not 3/5 human beings, which we was classified when the Constitution of the United States was written. That's why the majority of our so-called founding forefathers were slave masters, slave owners. And like I stated, which is very, very heavy of a jewel that we all got to keep in mind, that once we was brought to the shores of the wilderness of North America, AKK, KKK, America, and chattel slavery was forced upon us, we were separated, because that's the first tool of making devil, because he never goes out of his script, his ideology of philosophy of divide and conquer. And he used divide and conquer first in the physical form. Because like I stated once again, when the male black male child became 7 to 10, anywhere where he would start to realize his power or his strength, they would separate us because we got power and unity and strength when we together. But we have nothing when we separate. So whether the Willie Lynch theory was right or not, they dealt with separation because by separating us, then we would no longer recognize who we was as a family, as a body. We would no longer have a foundation. So when he took me off the plantation and he left Jay and he left Joseph, I was belonging to the slave master Washington. But now when he sent me out Midwest, I went to the slave master named Jones. And when they sent Joseph all the way west, he went to the slave master named Baker. So now all three of us got different last names. And we don't know who we are because now, as us all being blood brothers, we have been separated to different geographical locations in America at that time and forced to become a part of another unknown person's family name. Understand that system and how diabolical it was. Because now that we don't know no longer that we are brothers and sisters because we all took on the names of our slave masters, is why we don't have the love for one another that we should have. The love that we should have before we end up with life in prison. The love that we should have before we take a gun and blow another brother's brains out that could possibly be our own blood family member. But because our slave master gave us a different name and we no longer know who we are willing to fight and kill and destroy one another because he started causing fusion amongst original people, causing them to what? Fight and kill one another. This is why our lessons were so important in waking up the lost and found in the wilderness of North America. When we came in this as young gods and young earths, the 85% were those who were deaf, dumb, and blind, and still being controlled by the 10% of the population that know, but choose and refuse to teach them because they want them to remain blind, deaf, and dumb so that they can become rich off their labor. We here now. We got a job to do. Everything in life comes 360. It's time to wake the East Coast back up, the West Coast, the South, the Midwest. Like we say, I don't come from no special place in the US of A. I'm universal. And it's my job to go out here and teach the universal family, which is the black man, woman, and child. Because the universe is everything. The sun, moon, and stars. The black man, black woman, and black child. And of course, our Father did not teach us to be pro-black or anti-white. It's our job to teach all the human families of the planet Earth civilization and knowledge of himself and the science to everything in life, love, peace, and happiness. But before we can cure the madness, we must first cure the madness amongst ourselves. We cannot go out and teach no other families without first being responsible for our own family, for our own original family. Because once we change the mindset and the conditions of those who have been slaves, then we can free the mindset and conditions of everybody. So like I said, stay tuned, stay focused, hit the subscription button, join, it's free. Then hit the bell on the side after you join and subscribe, because when you hit the bell, it's going to show up and you're going to personalize it. And then you're going to enjoy every video that God in them streets have to offer, because like I said, I'm sacrificing myself in all these stories and everything that I've encountered throughout my life to help benefit the youth. My mission with God in them streets is to wake you up so that you can be responsible when you young and make the right choices while you young and begin to build for yourself and stop letting peer pressure and all these things that's out here that's fictitious. Because when you get that life without parole, how many of them individuals that was running around gang, 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 bang, 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 is going to be there to support you? If you got any seeds, how many of them is going to go by and make sure that they guided in the right direction and make sure that they could go to school and, you know what I'm saying, a drug-free zone, a violent-free zone where they ain't got to worry about, you know, is they going to get shot going to school or coming home from school, or even worse than that, getting shot in school. School, church, all these places used to be safe havens. They're no longer safe havens from evil. And it's the powers that be that promote this. Because none of us are born racist. None of us are born bigots. When children get together, they play like children because they don't understand racism. Because racism is not inherited. Racism is taught. And they don't realize as long as they teach the destruction of the black man, the black family, and the black race, then all they doing is leading society toward destruction. When we sold crack, it was an epidemic. They threw us all in jail for hundreds and hundreds of years. When Oxycontin come around, it's a crisis. Now they give them treatment. So an epidemic is a war. It's pertaining to the black man, woman, and child. We got to make sure we put as many black men that was economically able to gain off of this in jail. Separate them from their family. But now that it's Oxycontin and it's a crisis, we take them same men and women that are Caucasian and we put them in treatment centers and we give them all the tools that they need to get their life back in order and still be able to sustain a family after they come back out, and make sure that they put them in positions of employment where they, you know, ain't got no reason to go back to getting high or selling drugs. It's always going to be a reverse polarity, and we got to accept that. Because if we don't accept that, then we will not work harder. If we don't accept that, we will not expect greater things of ourselves. Forget what a person is doing to you and how they trying to hold you back. Just like in the games, if the ref don't make the calls for you, you got to play through it. You got to shine regardless. So like I said, Once again, I'm going to do my best to keep it coming at y'all because I know I got a job and a mission out here as a civilized person to teach the uncivilized who is savage, righteousness, the knowledge of himself, and the science to everything in life, love, peace, and happiness, that I will do that duty. And I will make sure that I live out what is the prescribed laws of that said person, of that ability. Because I'm going to teach the uncivilized civilization. So we, the 5% nation of gods and earths, true and living gods, true and living earths, we're going to make sure that we do our job that our Father left us to do. And we're going to educate from the college institutions to the penal institutions. It used to be reversed. Most of the brothers got it in the penal institution and then came home and taught other brothers, you know what I'm saying, so that they would eventually not go in that direction and go, instead of going to the penal institution, to the college institution. And that's what happened with me. But once again, I made the wrong choice. So I had to suffer the consequences. And those consequences, especially for a young black man, is a felony. So once again, I hope that y'all enjoy God in them streets. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. It's free. Don't forget to hit the bell next to it and personalize. So that way, every time I put out a video, it will come to you. My family of the 5% nation of gods and earths, my groove family and my swing sisters, I hope all of y'all out there, my friends, y'all support me. Y'all know I'm coming with nothing but the truth. I'm coming with nothing but authentic information, crisis, everything to wake our people up.
I'm the all in all, from the dust in the universe to the waters in the womb I surf. I'm the all in all, from the atoms that exist in the sun to the atom that's in Genesis 1. I'm the all in all, from the first king that walked this globe to the last black slave they stole. I'm the all in all, every living thing you see, all of those things exist in me. I'm the all in all, from the depths of the sea to Mount Everest.